Greetings, everyone. I want to give a little introduction to these Hebrew prepositions when they combine with pronouns. So we're going to be looking at Hackett Chapter 9, or whatever Hebrew textbook you're learning from. And one thing I want to emphasize, there are a lot of charts in this chapter, but there are really just two charts you're going to need to learn. And not only are there only two, but I should say these two really need to be committed to memory super well, because you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck with these two charts. And I'll try to illustrate that. So the first chart is on page 41. And if we take the preposition b in, let's just translate it in for now. When we combine b with ani, we get b. And b plus ata gets baka. And you will see as we go through this chart that there are remnants of our independent pronouns. So ani ends in this sound, ani. And so when you put b with I or me, you get b. And again, with ata, you end with an a vowel, a kamets. And with the preposition, it becomes baka. You might say, why the K? Why the kaf? It's a good question. I don't know of any answer, but you will notice that it happens with all of the second persons, which is to say, you masculine, baka, you feminine, bak. And if we come over here to our plural chart, bakem, so atem is y'all, bakem, in y'all, we still get that K, and baken instead of aten. So in y'all, speaking only to women now. And so you're still going to get the telltale M and N from atem and aten, but with a kaf every time it's a U form. Now, one reason to put this line in, this red line, is to illustrate that once you have committed this paradigm to memory, you can substitute other prepositions. So if instead of b, we want to have l, which means two or four, we don't have to learn a whole new chart. This chart serves for combining the preposition l with the pronominal suffixes. All we have to do is put l right in all the places where we had b. So li is to me, laka is to you, lach to you feminine, lo to him, la to her. And I'm going to continue to go through these because there's going to be just one wrinkle. So how would we say to us instead of banu, in us, lanu, to us or for us, instead of bachem, in y'all, lachem, lachen. Now here is the wrinkle. You cannot simply substitute a lamed for the bait here. So whereas bam is in them, now that we want to use the lamed, the to, it's actually going to be lahem. And similarly for the feminine third person plural, lahen. You still see that characteristic mem, which is going to look very they or them to you shortly. Every form of them, when it's a suffix with a preposition or as a suffix like their horse, we're going to see this M on the they plural or the N on the they plural feminine. So you can see just how powerful it is to memorize this basic chart, because when you learn a new preposition, you don't learn a whole new chart. You just say, it's the same, except for maybe I need to pay attention to a couple spots where it differs from the b paradigm. Let me just show you one other kind of nifty thing where you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck for these endings. And you do need to know, when I say endings, I mean just the e, just the cha, just the ach. Here's why these are so valuable and essential for Hebrew. We're doing prepositions plus pronominal suffixes. But what if instead of a preposition, we had a noun, like sus, horse? And if instead of saying to me as li, or in me as be, I wanted to say horse of me, or in normal English, my horse. All we do is plunk the word sus right in there with this same ending that we're learning right now in chapter 9. So this ending is going to work for us again and again with other prepositions or with nouns. And again, just to see how this works, this is not something we learn until 2 chapters from now. But once you've learned these endings, it's really a piece of cake. What if I wanted to say the horse of her? Well, is my ending. I'm just going to put the word horse right in here. Susa, her horse. And so on and so forth. Okay, so hopefully I've persuaded you. It's really essential to memorize this first paradigm, and especially the endings. There's one other paradigm it's really essential to memorize, and that's on page 43. You'll sometimes hear it referred to as a type 2, and that is with prepositions like L. L means to. It means basically the same thing that L does, but it shows up in slightly different places. And I hope you'll see, as you start to memorize this, that it's not utterly different. So if I want to say L plus me, to me, it's a lie. This patak and yod form an A sound and a final Y sound. So a lie. That's the most difficult one to pronounce. But let's look at number 2. L plus our good old ka for ata, to you, is a lecha. And you see there's an accent on this syllable. A lecha. Before I go through the rest of the paradigm, I want you to notice that it's not altogether different. If you memorize that first paradigm well, and especially if you really just focus on the consonants, you have a yud for the first person, for to me. You have a yud and then the characteristic kaf. And in fact, they are the exact same consonants all the way through. They just have a yud first. They just have an extra consonant. So if we were to move this red line over, you would see ka, k without a vowel after it, a vav. It's going to sound different now, but it's still the same stroke of the pen. A hey, nu for anachnu, and so on and so forth. So I'm trying to make this seem like less stuff you have to memorize. Nonetheless, these are called type 2 prepositions, or prepositions that take this secondary form of ending. And they can take a little while to pronounce. So let's take this very important form here, a lav. This is L plus a him, so to him is pronounced a lav. And so somewhat counterintuitively, you do not pronounce this yod. It's silent in pronunciation. So aleph, tzera, then a lamed. What's our vowel under the lamed? It's a kametz. So a la, and then a consonantal vav. A lav is to him. That's really useful to practice because that basic form occurs about 50,000 times in the Bible. I don't know how many times. A lot. Okay. Once we have learned, so this was our second chart. I said there's really just 2 charts. We could call these the type 2 prepositions or just our second chart. Then, if we want to learn a new preposition like al, upon, the first thing we'll want to know is, does it behave like a type 1 preposition or a type 2? In other words, do we just do what we do with b? Or, and here's the right answer, in this case, we actually do what we did with l. So once you've memorized this chart, you can learn a new preposition. Al means upon. So alai, upon me. Alecha, upon you. Alaich, upon you feminine. Alav, upon him, and so on and so forth. Meaning, again, you get a lot of bang for your buck. You learn this new chart, and there's a bunch of other prepositions that will just fall exactly into these batch of endings, and even the same vowels. I've obscured some of the vowels accidentally, the same accents, and so on. All right? To wrap up, here I have these two charts side by side. The preposition b, and then our paradigmatic preposition l. And these are the two sets of, you can just memorize these two forms. Really what you need to know is these batch of endings. And what I want to just reiterate is that it's not as hard as it might first appear. It's sort of just one chart with then a secondary version. And the secondary version really looks like the first version, except it adds a yod. And so especially if you can attend to the consonants, what would have been a ka over here becomes something. So this vowel is going to be sounded ka. What would have just been a k without any vowel after it, bach, over here is going to be a laik, but it still ends with a kaf that is silent, that has no vowel after it, just has a yod. And even where they sound the most different, this is bo in him. This sounds like a lav. They don't sound alike at all. But visually, there's our vav. There's our sign that we're dealing with a third masculine singular, a him. There's our vav. And as time goes on, we'll learn a few other permutations to this third person masculine singular ending. But they will always have this letter. They will have this vav. Likewise with the feminine, we have a ha, and so on. So I hope recognizing that pattern makes it easier to memorize. And let me just say one final thing, and that is the difference between this type 1 over here on the left, things like b, and type 2 on the right, prepositions like l. There's no meaning to this difference. There's not any rhyme or reason. So you just have to find out l plus pronouns just uses this pattern. And when you learn a new word like al, upon, you just say, oh, which one? Oh, it uses this one. You learn another preposition like l, to, it happens to make its forms like b. There's not a difference in meaning, it's just two different patterns. That's all.